Wonderful. Usually, usually when I'm a few minutes late, I can always blame it on the guest. But since we don't have a guest tonight, it's all my fault. Man, so let me tell you what I was doing. Is coming up this week. I am going to record a video, and I was asked to present at the Camp Lead On. You know that whole crazy crew, get your teach on. And they do those amazing conferences across the nation. Well, obviously we're not having any conferences right now, so they are doing all those conferences virtually. And one of those conferences is called Get Your Lead On. It's for classroom and campus leaders. And they asked me to do a session. Of course, I said yeah. And check it out. They sent me some fancy schmancy lights to put behind me to light up my wall. I think I'm supposed to do purple. I'm not sure, but I chose. You can make all different colors. I made blue, and I think I get a blue on my head. I have to probably adjust that one. Yeah, Arkansas. Look at Lolita Moore from Georgia. How are you guys doing? Absolutely. So I'm excited. So I want to record that I think tomorrow or the next day. And then I think my session will come out sometime in September. I'm not good with the calendar. I lost track of days, man, this quarantine thing. Oh my gosh, I've lost a month. I'm sometimes I wonder what month it is. But I'm excited about tonight. We have had a guest on every week, and tonight I wanted to talk to you guys um, flying solo, and talk about a few things. And when I first started chatting with teachers about the quarantine, it was, I believe the first conversations I had were the second and third week of March. Remember, like March 14th and 15th, and we were going home for spring break, and we're telling our kids, hey, we'll see you, we'll see you in a week. And then we thought, well, maybe we'll see you in 2 weeks. And then we thought for sure we'll see you by mid-April. And then May came, and then the end of school came, and then summer, and here we are still trying to figure out how to go back. Well, back in March, when I was chatting with teachers online, and it started out with a little Facebook group and a few teachers, and then we moved over to Zoom. We had some Skype sessions and Google Classroom or Google Hangout Meet or whatever they're called now. And it grew, and since then I've had thousands and thousands of conversations. And some of those conversations, at the very beginning we were talking about coronavirus, and we were talking about just like, where's this thing going to go? And then the conversation obviously moved into equity and race, and not just what are we thinking about doing, not just what are we thinking differently, but what are we going to do differently this school year with our kids of color as we come back to the classroom. And then lately that conversation has shifted more to safety and personal protection and taking care of our families, and protecting teachers in the classroom, and those of us that are going back in person online, or some crazy combo AB day hybrid of the two that some folks are doing. And it dawned on me in all those conversations, not, I think, there's a lot of details to cover, but it dawned on me that um, maybe we have lost track of a few really, really important things as we go back. Because, we're driven by a lot of emotion right now. If you watch anything on the news or on YouTube or social media, things don't end up on the news or on YouTube or on social media. They don't show good things. They don't show peaceful protesting. They show violence, and they don't show people of different backgrounds and cultures and races having meaningful conversation. They show hatred and conflict, and even with the coronavirus, there's a lot to handle. There's so much emotion with the millions, and we're approaching 4 million cases and 140 or 50,000 deaths, and that's a lot of trauma, I mean, for kids. Because don't forget, as kids are online, I'm not talking a 17-year-old, I'm talking like a 7-year-old with an iPad and a phone, all of this coming in. That is so much for a child to handle. So so much for a 17-year-old to handle. And not to mention educators hearing those numbers, seeing those images, and here we are going back to serve our kids. And it dawned on me, one of the things that I think that we have lost track of is a few questions, and that is, like I want to talk about all those things, and I know we're not going to solve, we're not going to come up with solutions. Like I get that this is a journey, and we're going to learn as we go and learn as we grow. I get all that, but the foundation upon which we can have those conversations should always come back to what do we want for our kids. The school year is going to start, and we are going to teach. Some will be in a classroom, some will be in a class Zoom, but one way or the other, we've accepted the honor and the privilege and responsibility of teaching kids. And I think the foundation for all those conversations, all the deals, has to stay the same, and that is ultimately as a result of our kids spending their lives with you, the most important adult of influence they will ever have. What's the real lesson of your class, and what do you want for them more than anything? Years from now, when they're thinking about and talking about and remembering all the details of you and your classroom, the classroom family that you built for them, what do you want that conversation to be? I think when we first start teaching, I don't know about you, but I never thought about that stuff. Man, I was 21, and man, I was trying to figure things out. I didn't know anything. I remember my first day. My first day, I went to school and I started in a tiny little Texas town, and we just had a few hundred kids. There were not a lot of K through 12. I'm talking like a few hundred kids. We would graduate, 10, 11, 12 kids. That's the senior class. That's the graduating class. So like, the top 10% of the class and the valedictorian, that's the same kid. We just got one top 10% kid, one, it's the same bit. So, it's not a lot of kids. And I showed up in that town. And if you ever teach in a tiny little Texas town like that, man, you're teaching them all. Well, first of all, you're not just teaching what you signed up to teach, you're teaching a whole bunch of other stuff too. And I remember I walked in there and you teach them all. You teach them crisscross applesauce, the little bitty ones. I'll come up and hug your leg, and then you teach the big, hairy, sweaty, bearded, tattooed. When you get them all, and first of all, like those kids, the crisscross applesauce, and the bearded one, they're all children. You get that right. Like they are all children. Yes, some of our kids in our classroom, some of our children, yes, they have very an adult look to them and they use very adult language, and they've had really really adult experiences, and they dress, they have the costume of an adult, but that's a costume, that's a child in there. Like if you look at the brain scan of a 17-year-old, it looks a lot closer to a 7-year-old than it does a 20-year-old. That's still a child. And I remember standing before those kids on that first day, right? And I walk in there, and I'm telling you, this is the only thing I've ever really wanted to do. Like, this is my life calling, right? And I stand before those kids and I look at them and they look up at me. And I can see in their eyes, it is so profoundly obvious that these little people, man, they would look up at me. I could see that these little people, like, hate my guts. Like they were mean and they were screaming at me and I would scream back at them, and we were in there all day long for like from 7:30 to 3:30 where it's a whole bunch of screaming. And I remember stumbling out to my Toyota Tercel, because that's when you drive when you're a first year teacher in 1989. And I get it, and I'm like banging my head on the steering wheel thinking, what have I done in my life? Yeah, I remember driving home, you know and I drive to my little apartment, and I stumble in there, and my mom is there. My mom and my aunt are waiting for me. They drove to this little town. They moved it. Wait, in my family, there's so many teachers that when you begin your career, people are going to move in. It's like having a baby. They're going to move in for a couple of weeks. They'll swaddle you up at night. They're going to feed you, rock you to sleep. And I remember walking and I'm crying, and there's my mom. How was school? How was school? And I'm thinking it was the worst day of my life. She's like, yes, welcome to teaching. You made it. And I sit on the couch and my feet hurt. I remember my feet hurt and I had a headache. I had the flu already. I like the flu already. It's the first day I've got the flu. And I remember sitting on the couch and they bring me food. And I remember like a plate in my lap, and then I just fall asleep. with food in my life, and it seems like just 3 minutes later, I can feel my mom on my shoulder, rocking my shoulder. Rise and shine, superstar! It's time to teach. And I'm like, I don't want to go. None of us do. Come on! And I get up, and the second day was worse than the first. It's like these kids had after school rehearsals on how to be mean, and they were meaner, and I was screaming, and every day got worse and worse and worse and like one day I quit. I'm not going. I told my mom, I'm quit. I can't do it. And they pushed me into the Tercel in the back seat. They drove me to the schoolhouse, pushed me out. We'll be back at 5:30, laughing at me, driving away. And finally I come home on that first Friday, January. I started on Monday morning, January 3rd. I had student taught in the fall, found a job. I started on Monday morning, January 3rd. I came home on Friday, January 7th, and I walk in, and there's my mom waiting for my aunt gave up. She left. She thought there was no hope. But my mom is sitting there at the kitchen table, and she says, "We need to talk. You're not gonna make it. No, you are not gonna." I'm like, "Mom, I'm crying. Mom, you've been doing this for like 20 years. If you can do it, I can do it." Oh, she goes, "Oh no, I'm not talking about as a career. It's January 7th. You're not gonna make it till Easter." And and she says, "Do you do you know what your problem is? You haven't taken a moment to think specifically what you want for your kids. As a result of your kids spending their lives with you, you're the most important adult of influence they will ever have. And you haven't taken a moment to think specifically what you want for your kids." And I'm like, "Yes, I have specifically. I want them to shut up and sit down. That's what I want specifically." And she's like, "No, we'll get to that in a moment. If you could have anything for your kids, what would it be?" And you know what? At the age of 21, with a 5-day teaching career, I hadn't thought much about that. I was just trying to figure out the copy code. That's about it, man. That's my priority. And I remember she pulls out her yellow legal pad. Listen, when my mama pulls out a yellow legal pad, you better be ready to work. She means business. If she's got her yellow legal pad out, you better be ready to go. And she pulls out her yellow legal pad and she puts the red pen on top. She was a teacher for 48 years. All her pens are red. And she slides that yellow legal pad across. And by the way, my mom's in her 80s now. She's retired, but she still carries a yellow legal pad everywhere she goes. Just just in case just in case she needs to educate somebody in public. She's one of those, like in the Walmart. You come here. Where's your mother? Yeah, put this in your pocket. I'm gonna put it on I'm gonna put a page in my legal pad. Put this in your like, Mom, leave her alone. Quit. Leave that lady alone. She works here. Stop. And I remember mom, she slides the yellow legal pad across the red pen and she tells me, "You pick up the pen and you begin to write. If you could have anything for your kids as a result of them spending their lives with you, you're the most important adult of influence they will ever have. What would it be? What's the real lesson of your classroom?" I remember I picked up the pen and I wrote a little bit and I wrote a little bit more, and she'd rip it and crumble and throw it away. Dig a little deeper. I tried again. I tried again. And we sat there and we would write. And I wrote and she'd crumble and she would say, "Dig deeper." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm 21. It's Friday. It's only so much depth, you know? And I'd write some more. For you, what is that for you? If you were to sit down with my mom and she would ask you to dig down deep, if you could have anything for your kids as a result of spending their lives with you, what's the real lesson of the classroom? Isn't that the most interesting thing of all about this education thing? They're going to forget the stuff. You get that right. Just like you did, just like I did. We all forget the stuff. I think it was wasn't it Dr. Skinner, the researcher? Think back to when you were in college. Remember what he said? It was in your education theories class. He said education is what remains after all that's been learned has been forgotten. It's the leftover stuff. They're going to forget all that we teach them, but the stuff that's real education. All that still remains within the kid. What is that? You know, the most ridiculous thing right now in my life. You know what it is? I'm about to pay a whole bunch of money for my kid to go to her second year of college online. It is completely ridiculous. You know why? Here's why. She already has access to the information. I'm thinking? Just give her the final today. Let her use her phone. She'll make 100. Or she can study all semester long and she'll forget it 2 weeks after the final. The kids have access to the information. They have access to the content. What's the real lesson that you want to instill in that kid using the content of your classroom as the vehicle to instill that lesson in in your children, in the kids in your class, in your classroom, in your class Zoom? What would it be? If you have access to the comments, in the comments, what would it be? What's the real lesson? Because you know what? In 25 years, 30 years, we'll say 40 years. In 40 years, your kids are going to be sitting at the high school reunion. For some of them, it will be, the 35th high school reunion in 40 years. Some of them in elementary school right now. It will be their 30th high school reunion in 40 years. And they're going to be sitting at the table, right? The lights are always dimly lit and everybody's wearing a name tag because you can't recognize these people 30, 40 years later. And they're going to sit at that table. And do you know what they're going to talk about? They're going to talk about their kooky teachers. That's you. What do you want that conversation to be? No one's going to say, you're going to say, oh my God, I remember her. Do you remember her? Yes. I remember Miss Autry. You remember her? Yeah, she was amazing, right? Remember you come around the corner and you look down the hall. Remember she was standing right there at the door. You remember that? I remember. Remember she'd say handshake, high five, a hug. I know, right? Yeah, sometimes I went with the hug. Me too. And you know what? I didn't get it then. I didn't understand it when I was in her class then, but I get it now. Do you know who I am today because of her? Because of that classroom family and all that we did together, all that we experienced in that room together. Do you know who I am today? What do you want that to be? I taught a little bit of science. I guarantee you, my kids that I taught science to, they did really well in the test because I'm pretty good at getting kids prepared for a test. To this day, they couldn't pass that test, not even close. Covalent bonds, the periodic, no, they couldn't remember any of that. Gold, AU, they don't remember any of that stuff. None of it, nor should they. But my hope is the content of the classroom and all that we experienced in that family that we created in there together had an impact on the character of that kid. Do I want high performing academic kids? Of course I do. But more than that, I want kids of exceptional character because they're going to sit at that table and they're going to talk. Do you remember that man? And remember the man in the class? I remember we had that man teacher. You remember that? Oh man, he was awesome. You remember that? Yeah, I remember. Remember how he would make you shake his hand at the door. I remember. And you know what? Sometimes I would try to, kind of jive, shake. He said, no, man, firm it up. Made us look him in the eye when we shook hands. Remember, he said, firm handshake. Look me in the eye, son. Called me son. I'll never forget that, man. Yeah. And remember, he said, good morning, son. How are you? And then if you didn't say anything, remember what he do? He said he wouldn't let go of your hand. He keeps staring at you. I know. I learned how to say, good morning, sir. How are you? He said, I'm fine too. Thank you for asking. Man, I'll never forget that guy. And you know what? For me, that guy, I remember that school year. You know what that school year was for me? During that school year, every Sunday, I remember that school year, every Sunday, I would go into my kitchen on at 2:30 on Sunday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. because my dad would come pick me up to visit me at 3. And you know what? I'd be at that window at 2:30. And I'd wait. And I'd look out the window down the driveway and I would wait. I'd be there at 2:45 still waiting. I'd be there at 3 and I would be waiting. And I'd be there at 3:15. I'd still be waiting for my dad. And I'd be there at 3:30 and still be waiting for my dad. And finally my mom would come up behind me and I remember she would rub my shoulders and I wouldn't let her see me cry. I don't want anybody to see me cry. And I would just look straight ahead out the window and she'd say, I, I guess your dad's busy. Yeah, I guess so. And she said, go get your ball. Get the glove. Get the ball and the glove, and I will throw the ball with you. She can't throw. But you know what? Every single Little League game I had that year, that teacher was there. That man from the classroom was there every game in the stands. He was there at practices. Come on, son. Call me son. Let's go. Every time I was up to bat in a game, let's go. Come on, son. You got it. Let's get a hit. Every time. I didn't get a single hit that year. I was terrible. You got it this time. He never gave up. And you know what? That year in that classroom, that was my dad. He served in the role as my dad. He taught a class that they called social studies. What a bizarre name for a class. And I'm telling you, I am terrible at social studies to this day. I don't remember anything. Dates and names and places. That's all right. I got a phone. I'll look it up if I need it. I didn't retain anything from that class, but you know what I did learn from that teacher? I learned how to be a dad. I learned how to love people relentlessly. I learned how to not give up on kids. I learned how to give people a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. And if they let me down and disappoint me, that it's okay with me. I give them another opportunity to be great. And they mess that up. And I give them another opportunity to be great. And I don't quit. I don't quit on people because of that class we happen to call social studies. What is it for you? For all your kids. If you could have anything for your students, you're the most influential adult that they will have forever, for all of them. You know what my mom said that night? We were writing on the yellow legal pad. She said, don't think you can pick and choose which kid needs you and which kid doesn't. Your children in your classroom every year in every class, no matter the grade, they will forever be better actors than you are a teacher. And I didn't get it at first because I was 21 on Friday. I had no idea what she was talking about, but I got it like years later. It took me years. I'm a little slow on the uptake, but I got it finally when she said, your kids will forever be better actors than you are a teacher. What she meant was just because some kid looks like they have the perfect life doesn't mean they do. They will forever be a better actor than you are a teacher, and they will fake you out every time. Just because some kid goes to youth group every week and they're in competitive cheer and club soccer and on the drill team, or they have two parents with awesome jobs and they drive matching his and her Audis, and they live in a giant house with a picket fence and a elaborate schnitzel designer doodle running back and forth. You don't know what really goes on in that house. And you never will. So it's every single one of your kids. You can't pick and choose which kid needs you and which kid doesn't. It's every single kid. And you know what I do in my mind with the kids in my classroom? I have to do. I know it's unreasonable, and I know I can't help it, but I have to do it. You know what I do? In my mind, every one of those kids sitting before me, as the classroom, as the leader of this classroom family, in my mind, they have no one. I have to set it up like that, or I'll miss a kid. in my mind, none of them have great parents. None of them have a youth minister. I know they do. Like now, when I'm not in front of them, of course I know they do. They have great parents, some of them, and great coaches, and great youth minister, and scouting, and yeah, all that. But when they're with me in my, all that goes away. They have one person. It's me. That way, I don't miss a kid. We just cannot afford to miss a kid. What is it for you? If you could have anything for your kids, what would it be? Because you know what? Years from now, even your most challenging kid, years from now, think about the most challenging kid you have. You know, the one that tries to sit on the back row closest to the door, that one. You know, he always wears a hoodie, like a black hoodie, and he pulls it down low like this, the hood, so you can't see his eyes, trying to remain anonymous. Like the kid, he had gnawed out the holes in his sleeves so he can poke his thumbs through. That one, back row by the door, black hoodie, thumb sticking through that kid, decades from now, that kid is going to be walking his kid, his own child, to the first day of school someday. And he's going to be walking at his child down the hall. Now, because of you, he's this upstanding, amazing dad, was a wonderful person, filled with qualities of character and integrity, and he's walking down the hall, and his daughters are hanging on to just hanging on to the two fingers. I love watching like a first grader go to school on a first day. They're kind of being dragged and walked at the same time, and about halfway to class, how their eyes start to well up with tears. Right, they're not crying yet, but the little first grader eyes, like the tears are balancing. There's a lot of volume on the lower lid, right? And the kid blinks a little too hard, and here comes one. The kid blinks a little hard, here comes the other. And your student, black hoodie, back row by the door, is going to see the tears streaming down the cheeks of his child. And he's going to stop right there in the hallway of the school and get down on his knees so he can be eye to eye with his daughter, because he learned that subconsciously from you, the way you would work with him at his desk. And he's going to pull her in close, just like you did. He's going to put his hands on her arms and shoulders to let her know she's safe, because he learned that from you. And he's going to look her in the eye. He's going to say, "No, baby, no, those tears right there, those tears, those are tears of joy and wonder and excitement. You know why? Because you are about to meet your teacher. In fact, let me tell you about the best teacher I ever had." And he's going to tell him about you. What do you want that conversation to be? It could be anything. We just need to know what we want for our kids. As we prepare to go back, let that be the foundation of everything that we talk about. If we're meeting with our kids in the classroom, distanced apart, and we have face shields and masks and plexiglass, like, I get it. Yeah. And what do we want for our kids as a result of this year, spending their lives with you? The most influential adult that they will have, for meeting online for the first part of the year in a class Zoom, in Google Meet, in Google Classroom, Flipgrid, whatever you're using. When those kids come up on the screen, let that be that what's in your mind and what fills your heart as we construct our curriculum and our instruction for the year. If I could have anything for these kids as a result of our time together this year, what would it be? This is a historic year, an historic year for our kids. They're going to talk about this year forever. This will be in the history books. This is a defining moment in our nation's history as we come together with a pandemic, with social unquestioning and unrest, and trying to bring equity to our schools and our culture and our society. And the question for you is, if you could have anything for your kids when they think back and remember their time with you, what would it be? And you know what? When we begin our career, our classes this year, like let us be honest. I think sometimes when we start the year, we aren't always honest with our kids. Sometimes we tell them that big fib, the big lie that we tell our kids, "Hey, I'll be your teacher this year." That that's not true. That's wildly untrue in two ways. First of all, just the word teacher, there's so much to that. At least explain the definition of what that means. Yes, this year I'll be your teacher. Let me understand. Let me let you know what that means. Is I'm going to be your mom. I'm going to be your dad. I'm gonna. There's going to be injuries. I'm going to take care of. So I'll be your doctor. At times I'll be your nutritionist. I'm going to be your mentor, your guide. I would make the entire. Let them know the entire list and that whole thing this year. No, we'll be together for the rest of our lives. You'll be in my head. I'll be thinking about you. You'll be in my heart. This process that we're beginning this year in this family that we're going to create together will last for the rest of our lives. That's the truth. Let me tell you, people think I'm crazy. That's okay. I'm excited about this year. I don't care. I'm telling you, I am so excited about this year. And here's why. Because the kids have you. That's why. Like I love that. I love that there is one place. I just the thought of kids being on their own, alone out there, so many of them without structure, without guidance. And I love that somehow, however it is for you in your school, in your classroom, they're going to come together and they have the one consistent thing in their life, and that is you. The one person that will tell them every day that you love them, that you care about them, that they're important, that you believe in them, and to be able to articulate what you want for them as a result of spending this year together. It is critical. Please spend some time thinking about that. Dig down in deep into the emotion of that. If I could have anything, what would it be? And if you thought about it and you wrote some things down, look at it again tomorrow. Look at it next day. This is like a fluid, dynamic exercise. This isn't a one and done thing where you write down a sentence. That's what it is. It changes. It changes when you meet your kids. It should change as your classroom family grows closer together and develop that sense of connection and love for one another. It should change a little bit. Then let that be the foundation for all of our conversations this year as we move forward. Hey, listen, this is going to be a year that we remember, we talk about in our teacher circles forever. And I know the how we're going to do it is it's the hard part. I get it. But here's what I also know is really good, creative, resourceful solutions only result are always the result of being crystal clear about what we want for our kids and why. The how, we can't, it's too hard to figure out the how when we aren't first thinking about what we want and why we want it for our kids. I love that they have you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Help a Teacher Facebook Live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central. Hey, I'm gonna see how long I can keep these lights behind me. I think they're kind of cool. If I can make my head not blue. Actually, look, it looks like I have hair. Some of look at that. I might walk around with these things. All right, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for all you do for your kids. I so appreciate you and the work you do, and I love you. Have a great night. I'll see you.